we're dissecting a silent social weapon. It's something that literally forces people to mentally confess their hidden secrets. And the crazy part? Not a single word is spoken. It's known as the I know your secret trick. And honestly, it is terrifying how well it works when someone pulls it off correctly. Okay, picture this. You're sitting right across from someone, and they give you this very specific, calculating look. They smirk, and then they just casually change the subject. Now, you aren't being accused of a crime, right? You're not in an interrogation room, but I guarantee you, within 3 minutes, your heart rate spikes, your palms get sweaty, and you are internally panicking. You're thinking, how do they know? Is my secret out? And suddenly you find yourself frantically scrolling through this mental Rolodex of literally every bad thing you've ever done. So why is this so effective? Well, it completely bypasses your logical mind. It doesn't give your brain a concrete accusation to analyze or, argue against. Instead, it bypasses all that and drops straight into the basement of your brain, instantly triggering a primitive emergency response. It creates this immense, almost unbearable mental pressure. In fact, it's so heavy that people will sometimes confess to things they've hidden for years just to relieve the tension created by a single glance. Part 1. The evolutionary glitch. Let's dig into why this works and why it's so lethal to our modern brains. To really grasp this, we have to rewind about 50,000 years. Back then, the absolute worst thing that could happen to you wasn't getting hunted by a wild animal. No, it was being cast out of your tribe. Banishment was a literal death sentence. Because of that reality, human beings evolved this hypersensitive, almost paranoid survival mechanism just to monitor and protect our group status. Fast forward to modern day, and this translates directly into an obsessive protection of our secrets. Why? Because secrets are the exact things that could get us kicked out of our modern tribes. And that brings us to our first big mental vulnerability, the spotlight effect. Basically, this is a cognitive bias that makes you feel like your mistakes are just written all over your face. You know the feeling, right? If you spill coffee and get a stain on your shirt, you feel like the entire room is staring at it. Same goes for secrets. If you harbor a secret, your subconscious actively believes everyone around you is constantly on the verge of figuring it out. Now, that underlying paranoia feeds directly into vulnerability number 2, the amygdala. This is basically the ancient emotional alarm system of your brain. So when you're faced with a silent, unknown threat, say a really strange, calculating look from a friend, the amygdala doesn't pause. It doesn't wait for your logical prefrontal cortex to assess the situation. No way. It just slams the panic button and instantly triggers a fight, flight, or freeze response. And here is the kicker. The human brain absolutely hates a vacuum. So a silent gaze acts like a totally blank canvas. When you give someone nothing concrete to react to, you are literally forcing them to project their own worst fears right onto that empty space. Rather than you actually accusing them of anything specific, their own brain does all the heavy lifting for you. It paints its own worst fears and basically ends up accusing itself. Part 2. The 3-step formula. Now we move from theory into physical execution. This trick requires incredible subtlety. It relies entirely on microexpressions and exact timing. I mean, if you just stare at someone with wide eyes, you're just going to look aggressive. So, during a natural pause in conversation, you hit step 1, a 2-second triangular scan. That's left eye, down to the lips, up to the right eye. This signals deep evaluation, not just casual listening. Then, step 2, you anchor it with a micro smirk, just a tiny, one-sided, 1 millimeter private smile, almost like you just uncovered a hidden clue. And finally, step 3, you slowly look down, give a single, knowing nod of understanding, and then immediately look back up and change the subject to something completely normal.
Part 3. The psychological trap, or as it's sometimes called, the open loop.
The crucial point to understand here is why that final step, changing the subject to something completely mundane, is the most damaging part of the whole process. I mean, why not just hold eye contact? Well, the answer lies in the Zeigarnik effect. This is a super powerful psychological principle stating that our brains naturally fixate on incomplete or interrupted tasks. Think about it. If you did the look, did the smirk, and then just kept staring, the other person would just feel challenged. They'd probably get defensive, ask what you're staring at, and boom, the tension is broken. But by immediately changing the subject, you interrupt that tension. You trap your target in an agonizing open loop.
At this point, their brain instantly splits onto two parallel tracks. Outwardly, on a surface level, they're chatting with you about, say, that new movie that just came out. But internally, on a subconscious level, they are experiencing massive psychological discomfort. Their internal dialogue is just screaming, "What did that look mean? What do they know about me?" They are desperately, frantically seeking closure.
And to ease that immense discomfort, they have to close the loop. They just have to. So within a few minutes, they will inevitably expose their own flank. They'll casually fish for answers, dropping a line like, "Wait, did Sarah tell you something about me earlier?" And the very moment they ask that question, they have just handed you the key to a secret you never actually knew existed.
Part 4. The shield. How to defend yourself.
Because look, this explainer isn't just about decoding manipulation. You actually need to know how to react if someone tries to hack your brain with this exact trick, whether that's in a meeting, a tough negotiation, or just a really toxic social setting. So what do? Well, the absolute worst thing you can do is fall into the trap. Do not look away nervously. Do not get defensive. And whatever you do, do not start explaining yourself. Don't say, "I didn't do anything," or "Why are you looking at me like that?" Because the second you protest your innocence to a totally silent look, they win. Game over.
Instead, you need to call out their frame immediately. The second you spot that triangular scan and that little micro smirk, smile genuinely, look them dead in the eye, and use this exact script. You have a really interesting way of looking at people. Are you trying to read my mind, or do I just have something on my face? Let me tell you, this instantly breaks the spell.
And here is exactly why this shield works so well. By calling it out so casually, you prove that you see their micro-expressions. This completely destroys that manufactured sense of mystery they were trying to build up. On top of that, you turn that super uncomfortable spotlight directly back onto them. So now, instead of you defending a secret, they are the ones forced to explain their strange, awkward behavior. You totally collapse the manipulator's frame.
Ultimately, understanding human behavior is a lot like reading code. Once you understand the basic software the brain runs on, you can start spotting these minor glitches in social behavior in real time. The "I know your secret" trick is really just one of many hidden programs running just under the surface of our everyday human interactions. I want you to use this knowledge responsibly, of course, to navigate your social dynamics safely. But as we wrap this explainer up, it definitely leaves us with one pretty provocative thought. What other psychological glitches are people actively exploiting in your subconscious right now, without you even noticing? Keep your eyes open and always pay attention to the details. Thanks for hanging out and learning with me today.